Taking 180 days off really improve productivity. Dan Sullivan thinks so, and he's one of the forefront thinkers out there. I also believe in it, with a couple of nuances that we're going to talk about today. Now, I'm not saying don't do the hustle. I'm saying be smart about that hustle. So what are some benefits to recovery? What's the deal with taking 180 days off? And why is recovery so important? I'm going to use a couple of analogies to explain my view on it. And I'm going to use some examples of things that I physically do and the benefits that I've personally seen in doing so. There's individuals out there that'll tell you, hustle, 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 all day long. Just keep on going, go, 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 run, 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 run. Can you run all day long? Every day of the week? David Goggins might be able to do that, but can you? Can you run a vacuum all day long and that motor doesn't get hot or overheat? That vacuum has to be turned off every once in a while, and it has to be stood in the corner of the room so that it can, that motor can cool down. It's kind of the same thing with us. The benefits of recovery are immense. There's plenty of studies out there. I'm going to give you a couple of studies that I looked at so that you can actually go read them yourselves and not necessarily just take my word for it. Who the hell am I? I'm a guy on the internet. But I'm reading this. It's not stuff that I'm pulling out of thin air. So, what are the benefits is clearing your mind. Whenever I take time off and I have that recovery day, 2 days, 3 days, sometimes it's even just an hour or two. But whenever I go fully into recovery, I feel much calmer and much more relaxed. And my brain is able to think more. So let's define what I mean by recovery so that we're speaking the same language. Recovery to me is I'm completely removed from work, both psychologically and physically. So physically, I'm out of the office. I'm detached from the phone and putting fires out. And psychologically, I'm not thinking about work. My focus is on something completely different. Whether that's learning something new, but if I'm learning something new in recovery, then it's something completely out of the realm of what I do. So for me, coaching, speaking, mindset, real estate. So my recovery out of the realm is going away for a 3-day hike and stargazing. If I'm learning a new skill, I'm learning wood turning. So I'm focusing on the lathe. If I'm learning a new skill, I'm learning gardening. So I'm focused on soil and plants and seeds and biochar and how all of that interacts and the soil amendments and those items, right? I'm learning how to garden. I'm learning about soils and how the soil affects the plants and how the plants affect the soil and what that cycle is. I'm completely removed from mindset, real estate, coaching, public speaking. Completely removed from it. Fishing's another one. So how do you remove yourself? What does recovery physically look like? Recovery has those two elements. I'm physically outside the office, detached from work, detached from my phone. You're not allowed to call me and tell me there's a fire. Deal with it. Have that management system in place to deal with it. When I go on recovery, my director knows not to contact me. Now, there are criteria. I will tell you straight out that there is criteria she's allowed to contact me, right? If someone gets injured, that's something that I want to be on the forefront of. So there's criteria that she has, but it's very, very, like, it's got to be drastic things for my phone to ring when I'm in recovery. The other thing is psychologically, I'm not thinking about work. So I'm doing and focusing on something else. How and where. The how and where is completely up to you. For me, I can only talk about my experience and what I've done and what I physically do. So for me, my recovery looks like I'm outdoors. That's my pivotal thing. Like almost all of my recovery takes place outdoors. So I'm outdoors. I'm doing things like fishing, hiking, cycling. I wish I did actually more cycling. Maybe this will get me to do more cycling. But cycling's one of mine. I like hiking, and I'm in a fairly remote, not a completely remote area, but we have mountain peaks here. Small mountain peaks, nothing like Mount Everest. But I'll go up to those peaks and I'll look out over the valley. I'll look out over the river. I'll look out over the town. And when I'm up high and I'm just out there kind of like gazing across 3 states, it shows me how immense the world really is. How much abundance there is. It allows me to see the forest, not just the trees. So that gazing does a lot for my mental reset. Sometimes my mental reset is just sitting out on the deck. Again, I gaze off my deck. I don't see brick buildings like I used to when I lived in the city. I see woods, and I pay attention to nature. I have a friend of mine that says, get the goods in the woods. And what he means by that is that he gets his reset walking through the woods, because the woods are nothing but abundance. When you look at the trees and you pay attention to the wildlife. I do the same thing on my deck. The birds coming into the bird feeder. I'll walk through my garden. I'll pay attention to the bees visiting each, each flower. They visit each flower, they gather up the pollen, they put that pollen on their back legs, they fly off to the beehive and they produce honey from that. Like, nature's amazing. Just slowing down and living in the present moment. Maybe you like skiing, so you go off skiing. Maybe you like fishing and you go deep sea fishing. Like, whatever activity it is for you, so that you can remove yourself from the work environment, both physically and psychologically, so that you can just relax and get that reset. My wife loves going for massages. That's her thing. Me, I want to go for a run, or I want to sweat, or I want to do something physical. She wants to do something more in the typical relax mode. The one thing that I always carry with me is a notebook. Like these little notebooks. Check out these little notebooks. These little notebooks. Or I actually have a phone app that I can take notes, and I have a phone app that I can record. I even have a little recorder here sometimes I use. This is old-fashioned, what we used in college to lay on the desk to record the professors. It's what we used to do before there were phones. So I have some kind of recording device with me so that I can jot down the notes that being out there allow to rise to the top. I'm walking through the woods. I'm in a very relaxed state, and that's where I get some of my best ideas. If you heard me speak before, you'll know I speak about a little oak seedling. That thought came from me walking through the woods and seeing an acorn and then a seedling sitting next to it. And I'm like, and I don't know how that happened, but it did. And it happened because I was in that relaxed state. Think about the last time you were in the shower, or the last time you were flying or driving. A lot of times, those three instances are where I have a lot of thoughts pop up. And it has to do with either, I don't know what it has to do with, but it has to do with me being in that relaxed state. Like I'm in my own little bubble, in my own little sphere, and my mind can just relax. It's like being that vacuum we spoke about in the corner. Like now the engine's starting to cool off. It's starting to cool off and rest and recover. Think about when, if you're an exercise guy, this will resonate with you. And if you're not an exercise guy, I challenge you to do 100 squats, right? If you're doing 100 squats right now, or 100 lunges, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're not an exercise guy, your legs are going to be killing you tomorrow. You do 100 lunges, you might not be able to walk up the stairs because your body then needs that recovery. Your mind's the same way. You're constantly going and going and going. That's like doing the lunges, right? It's like running the marathon. You need to recover after that. You need to let your mind just decompress so that all those ideas can come into you, flow into you. Bill Gates did this. Bill Gates, whether you hate him or you love him, whether Microsoft's the best thing ever or the most horrible thing in the world, it doesn't matter. Take a page from his book. He's one of the most successful people in the world. He would run into a really big challenge at Microsoft and he would disappear for 2 weeks. And people would be like, where are you going? Like the building's on fire. And he would go and he would do what I call a solo weekend. I talked about solo weekends. He would just go away and remove himself from the environment and really just do some deep thinking on that. Now, that's not necessarily recovery, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about recovery. I'm talking about just going off and doing almost the exact opposite of that. But when you remove yourself from the environment, when you start just decompressing, you open up your mind. A couple of research papers for you to look into if you wanna take this a step further. A couple of research papers you can look into. The psychological detachment from work during leisure time. Psychological relaxation techniques to enhance recovery in sports. Staying well and engaged when demands are high. And the role of psychological development. Ben Hardy wrote in his book, 10X. This is a great book, by the way. We're going to be talking a lot about this book. 10X is easier than 2X, Ben Hardy. He wrote it with Dan Sullivan. And he writes in this book, your ability to turn 100% on and work in a flow state is in equal proportion to your ability to turn 100% off and fully release and let go. Focus is contraction, where recovery is expansion. Think about that for a second. So your ability to turn 100% on is in direct relation to your ability to turn 100% off. And that's what recovery gives you. Recovery gives you that off. I'm going to leave you with this last thought. Think about the last time you went on vacation. You went on vacation, you stepped into that hotel room, and it was like, it brought you calmness, it brought you relaxation. Did you start thinking of ideas of what you can do and how you can solve the world's problems? Did you come home refreshed and energized? Think about that. Guys, we live up here in the numerator, not down here in the denominator. Go out there, take your... Oh, I'm sorry. This is funny. my mind keeps going, right? We spoke about 180 days. That's Dan Sullivan's number because Dan Sullivan is doing really high level things. I'm not taking 180. I'm not taking half the year off in recovery, right? I'm taking 2 or 3 days a month off in recovery. I'm not at that level. You have to determine what level you're at and take the appropriate recovery. The real message of this was, I don't expect you, or I don't believe it's a good idea to always be going. I believe that you need that reset. Sometimes I take just a half an hour during the day as my reset. But you need that reset. That recovery is ultimately the reason why you have the energy to forge forward. LeBron James, last point, LeBron James, he played big time ball, right? But he himself took time to recover. He took time to recover his body. Ice baths, massages, sleeping in. I just don't want you, this hustle porn, right? You gotta constantly hustle. No. I think that when you're hustling and you're going all out, you have to take time for yourself so that you can re-energize the batteries and come back and hustle more. Guys, up here in the numerator, not down here in the denominator, results over excuses. Go out there today and be unstoppable. Crush your day. Love spending time with you guys. Have a great day.